What does your recruiting really cost you, and how do you know if you're getting your money's worth? This is John Wentworth, and I've been running a recruiting company for 30 years. Why should you care about the cost of recruiting? First of all, because the quality of talent has a huge impact on an enterprise. Second, the cost of the acquisition of talent can and should be managed just as all the other costs in the enterprise are. Third, someday general management will ask that the same analytics they apply to marketing and manufacturing be applied to human resources. If you are still measuring recruiting only by total dollars spent, that day will not be a happy one for you. And fourth, there are better recruiters and less good recruiters. Unless you measure their performance, including cost, you'll never know if you're getting your money's worth. Why do better recruiters matter? Because better recruiters get you better candidates who become more productive workers. Better candidates who like their jobs, work hard, and stay, reducing the cost of turnover and the disruption that turnover causes. A lower cost of acquisition of employees. Jobs filled on time. Better candidates, so hiring managers spend less time interviewing candidates they don't want to hire. Organizational insights regarding obstacles of recruiting and how to overcome them. And lastly, no drama, consistent recruiting that produces happy and productive hiring managers. This presentation is based on two guiding principles. First, measuring recruiting is not hard. Second, the single dimension of total dollars spent ignores the many years of research and study by Jack Fitz-Enns, the inventor of HR work measurement, the entire academic community, and the major human resources consulting firms, and it is simply an overly simple and incorrect measurement. Like buying raw materials for manufacturing, cash considerations, of course, influence decisions, but the larger consideration is how to get the best materials for the lowest unit price. Here are three foundational concepts. First, cost must be viewed in the context of what you get for it. Second, unit cost is the correct measurement of a recruiting cost. And third, cost of recruiting, as expressed as a percentage of salary, is much more useful than cost per hire expressed in dollars. Cost must be viewed in the context of what you get for it. Here we have two boxes of cereal. One costs $5 and change, the other costs $6 and change. Is the less expensive box better? Consider these two cereal boxes. The one for $5.49 gets you 17 ounces. The one for $6 1/4 gets you 23 ounces. Is the less expensive box better? The less expensive box of cereal gets you 17 ounces for 32 cents an ounce. The more expensive box of cereal gets you 23 ounces for 27 cents per ounce, 5 cents per ounce less expensive. So the more expensive box is better. Actually, the more expensive box is less expensive. So consider two recruiting programs. One costs you $500,000 in a year, and the other one costs you $1 million in a year. Is the less expensive recruiting better? The less expensive recruiting gets you 42 hires. The more expensive recruiting gets you 198 hires. Is the less expensive recruiting better? The 42 hires in the less expensive recruiting program cost you almost $12,000 a hire. The 198 hires you get for the $1 million program cost you just over $5,000 per hire. So once again, the apparently more expensive recruiting is better. It is actually less expensive. So you don't have the cash to spend $1 million on recruiting. You can only spend $500,000 on recruiting. So the first program on the left gets you hires for $11,000, almost $12,000 per hire. But the more efficient program on the right for $500,000 gets you 99 hires at just over $5,000 per hire. So the more efficient recruiting is better and less expensive. One last example. You only need 42 hires. So the recruiting on the left still costs you almost $12,000 a hire. So the total you're going to spend for the 42 hires is $500,000. The recruiting on the right, however, is more efficient. So the 42 hires at $5,000 a hire are only going to cost you $211,000. The recruiting that appeared in the beginning to be the more expensive is actually more efficient and, as a consequence, less expensive. We mentioned earlier that the cost of recruiting expressed as a percentage of salary rather than expressed as a flat dollar amount is a lot more useful than expressing it as a flat dollar amount. So here's an example of how that is. If you spend $10,000 to fill a job, if you're filling a $30,000 job, that's 33% of salary as your cost per hire, and that's lousy. If you spend $10,000 to fill a job, but it's a $120,000 a year job, then it's 12% of salary cost per hire, which is pretty good. So cost per hire as a percentage of salary is the accepted standard for measuring recruiting cost effectiveness. So here you can compare as a percentage of salary the various recruiting options that face a company. Retained executive search is typically 33 to 42% of salary. Contingency firms are sometimes as low as 15, but more typically 20 to 30% of salary. Human resources departments are 9 to 15, 9 to 12% of salary, depending on whether they're really finely tuned or not. And very good recruitment process outsourcing vendors are under 10, typically, percent of salary as the cost per hire. How do you calculate cost per hire? It can be very complicated or it can be very straightforward. I like the straightforward way. Cost of the recruiter plus other costs, ads, posting, travel, etc., divided by the first year's total compensation gets you cost per hire as a percentage of salary. Here's an example. The cost of the recruiter is $10,000. Other costs, $2,000 for a total of $12,000. First year compensation is $120,000. 12,000 divided by 120,000, 10% cost per hire as a percentage of salary. Here's a second example. The cost of the recruiter costs you $30,000. Other expenses cost you $10,000 for a total of $40,000. But in this case, there are multiple hires that were made, 5 hires at $80,000 for a total of $400,000 worth of salary. $40,000 in expenses divided by $400,000 worth of salary is, once again, 10% of salary as the cost per hire. Not many companies do it this way, but here's a more sophisticated and more accurate way of measuring your cost per hire. You take the cost of the recruiter and the other costs, and then add in the cost of turnover and divide that by your total first-year compensation. And that gets you a much more realistic picture. But as I say, almost no one does this, but it's still a better way to do it. How do you calculate the cost of turnover? Well, it's replacement cost, the cost of the recruiters, etc. The cost of lost productivity, overtime, work not getting done, etc. Cost of wasted management time, plus training replacement employees, the cost of that. This can be a very long and complex formula, or it can be as simple as you see on your screen. But either way, if you don't calculate the cost of turnover into your cost per hire, you're not getting an entirely accurate picture. So now you can have your arms around the cost of recruiting. But cost is not the only measurement of recruiting. Here are some other items that you can use to measure the effectiveness of your recruiting program. First, as we've talked about, is the cost as a percentage of salary. Any cost per hire for a recruiting function that's over 10% should be looked at very carefully. Are your jobs filled on time? Your managers have work to do. They need the employees in place in time to get the work done on time. It's very important that jobs are filled when they're supposed to be filled. There's no reason, if you're planning ahead, that 100% of your jobs are not filled on time. How many candidates do your hiring managers need to interview before they find one whom they want to hire? This is a direct measurement of the caliber of the candidates that are being found by your recruiter. More than 3 to 1, 3 interviews to 1 offer, there's a lot of scrutiny. It suggests either that the recruiter is not finding the right people or there is some very significant organizational issue. How many offers do you have to make to get somebody to say yes? It should be that 100% of your offers are accepted. And you can do that if your offers are progressively tested throughout the entire selection cycle. If you don't talk about money until the very last minute, then you're not going to get 100%. Anything worse than 95% suggests that the recruiter can put some extra concentration on this. How many of your candidates who say yes to your offer actually show up? If it's not 100%, then something's wrong. Typically what goes wrong is that the candidates are counter-offered by their current employer and they accept the counter-offer. There are some very specific things that your recruiters can do to neutralize that, but they need to do it. How do your new hires perform once they get on the job? Recruiters should be able to determine job by job which employee profile correlates with new employees doing well. What are the success profiles? Identifying those is certainly part of the job of a good recruiter. Once they identify success profiles, they should only present candidates with that profile to the hiring managers. If your recruiters are successful in doing this, then the hiring managers can select however they want and whomever they want and still be assured of hiring a productive employee. Do your new employees turn over or do they stay? Recruiters should determine the profiles that correlate to employees staying, and they should only present candidates who have that profile to the hiring managers. As before, if they do that, then the hiring managers can make decisions however they choose to and hire whomever they wish, and they will be assured of hiring individuals who will stay on the job and, as before, perform well. Measuring recruiting is the only way you will know how much your recruiting costs and what you're getting for your money. And industry standards exist against which you can compare your recruiting department's metrics. Now you can know what your recruiting really costs you and whether or not you're getting your money's worth. We hope you found this useful. For more information about the Wentworth Company and Wentworth Recruiting, please go to www.wentco.com. Or, if you would like, please call my good friend John Cianci, our Vice President of Sales and Marketing, and the contact information is on the screen in front of you. Thank you so much.